Hello everyone, in this video I wanted to go over Exocharts delta cluster functionality, breaking it down from the basic standard template you get here to begin with, and then eventually moving over to how I actually use my own templates, coming up with the settings and configuring a chart for yourselves as well. So to begin with, you're going to start this off. This is what you're going to be loaded up with on any sort of default template. Okay, this is Bybit BTC USDT, the linear functionality. Okay, and before we even move any further, so you're going to select it all here. You've obviously got delta cluster here. Now, before we move any further into discussing the actual ins and outs of the candles, etc., right click, go to chart settings, and head over to the data source, and you're going to want to adjust this use synthetic volume. Again, this is what most people are going to want to use, and this is so that you see the values in dollars, especially if you're dealing with Bitcoin values, then you're going to want to see it in dollars. So you can see here volume times price, turn it from BTC values to USDT, hit apply and rebuild. Okay, so now all the values we will see going forward will be in dollars. Okay, so bear that in mind. So first thing you're going to want to note is that everything really here is really small and tied up. So on the linear functionality, I would recommend right now putting it onto 80. Again, this can be whacked down to 40, but right now I think 80 is fine. Again, this is dependent on volatility. So yeah, bear that in mind. Now, each individual within this, right, you can see there's a lot of different numbers. We'll come back to the numbers in a second. We'll leave this on none. We'll just focus on the candle shading itself. Okay, and within this, you're going to see within each sort of little price tick bar, again, based upon the tick size you choose. Okay, right, there's actually different colors of shading. So this one's red, these ones are green, and you've got different shading. Now, how is that really calculated? It's buys minus sells. Okay, so if there's more buys within the candle, you know, and this is what basically tallies up delta at the end of the day. Total buys minus total sells will give you delta. So if you've got 5 million, right, for example, if you have 5 million buys, 3 million sells, that leaves you with a positive delta of 2 million. Okay, and this is what is calculating through each individual price tick here. Okay, so if we just put on really quickly we'll just put on bid ask, okay, because this is what bid ask will show you. So again, with this, you're going to see sells on the left, longs on the right, or buys on the right, sells on the left. Okay, and you can just really quickly tally up here 2.2 million buys, 1.6 million sells, and then that's going to give you a positive delta of 6 million. Okay, now you're going to be thinking, yeah, I think there's something I really want to clarify here, which is really important to note, and which is within, if you right click chart settings and then head over to cluster, okay, there's actually a ton of different settings here. Now, the calculation mode here, without getting too complex, is the default calculation mode is set to volume based. So the actual aggressiveness of the shading is not going to be based on the delta, but based on the volume calculated within each individual segment. So what that means is, just because a candle has a larger delta, for example, let's say one candle's got 5 million positive delta, another one's got 1 million positive delta, that does not necessarily mean that the candle with 5 million positive delta, okay, is going to be shaded darker. Okay, that just shows that the discrepancy between buys and sells within that candle was more in one. It doesn't mean that that candle's had more volume essentially traded within it. Okay, so for example here, you could say this is like extremely dark, okay, meaning there's a lot of volume going on here, but the delta within it is actually just about green. It's only got 400,000. You've got 4.3 million buys, 3.9 million sells. That tallies up to 400,000 buys. If we shift this over to delta based, you'll see how this completely changes its views, rather from dark to a fairly light green color. Okay, so I wanted to just bring that up. Again, this is how you want to deal with it. I actually leave it on volume based because I think it's really useful to see where the most volumes transacted rather than where the most delta has been swinging in one direction. I want to know where the most volumes transacting within a candle. Okay, and yeah, you can really switch this up how you want. I kind of switch between the two whenever, but I just wanted to bring that up. All the others are kind of miscellaneous. I wouldn't really mess with any of them. Yeah, I wouldn't really touch any of these unless you're really dealing with other profiles in which you can deal with bar width adaptivity. Okay, so that's that. Now within this, obviously you've got the value area. So if we go to value area here, you obviously can see value area settings. I've done this before. Value area, opacity outside, and we can shift this to 20. Now I'm going over this video, by the way, because a lot of people kind of don't understand these charts, and I wanted to just go over the basics for anyone that hadn't understood it. So again, we'll get to a bit more advanced topics later on down the line in this video, but I wanted to cover this for sort of the beginners. Okay, so again, I've just whacked on the value area opacity okay, to show and highlight the value area, so where the most volume within a specific candle is occurring. So outside the value area, this highlighted segment here is the actual value area where the most volume is occurring. Okay, and you can actually see what's going on in terms of buys and sells on each side individually. In terms of the buys and sells, a quick tip I would give for anyone that kind of gets them mixed up, whatever. Buys on the right, sells on the left. So sells on the left, SL for stop loss, sells on the left, and then you would automatically know that buys are on the right hand side. So that's for anyone interested in that. Obviously, this value area segment, so you have value area high, value area low. You then have the point of control with a board around it in yellow. Okay, and in this, the reason for this, okay, so you've got basically got a whole volume profile here, which is value area high, value area low, point of control, and this is what actually configures the value area, you know, the trap value area setup that I went over previously. Okay, also you might be thinking that the candles here are really light. We can or thin. We can adjust this to, like, you know, make it a lot larger, a lot more visible, so you can see where the actual open high low closes are in comparison to the actual delta cluster candle itself. So yeah, you know, obviously you've got the very basics in this case, going over all of this stuff. Moving back over, well, I won't even move back over to my one, but if we just go over to text type now, obviously what you're seeing here is the bid ask. Okay, you're seeing the sells on the left. You know, this is not too complex data at all. It's just buys on the right, sells on the left. In my opinion, you obviously have imbalance, which is going to be showing you the imbalance in comparison to that. This is fairly useful. I would use this, probably my second favorite one. Okay, but and what is imbalance? I'll probably do another video on this, but very quickly, this might be useful to some of you. You've basically got so you've got longs on the right here, so buys, and then you've got sells on the left. So it goes diagonally in terms of talking about the imbalance in comparison to the buys on the other side in this case. So you can see 1.7 million sells smashed through 493,000 worth of buying, and that's an imbalance between the two. This 1.6 million smashed through this 11,000 buys. And you can see here, for example, this 623,000 buys smashed through 217,000 worth of sales. So it kind of goes diagonally up to the right for the buys and down to the left for the sells. Okay, and you can adjust this by going to imbalance percentage, and I actually would adjust this to 390, so you don't have like really small imbalances. You only want to see where there's significant imbalances with the opposing values. Okay, so yeah, again, adjust this as you wish. Hopefully that's a really quick explanation as to how imbalances work. You then have, if you go to here, the other text types, you've also got delta. This is, in my opinion, I wouldn't use this within the delta clusters because you've got the shading of the candles already. You then have volume. You can use this if you want, but imbalance is probably one of the best ones, alongside now, in my opinion, short versus long new. Simply just new positions. Now, something to mention here is you're thinking the figures look really messed up. That's because we do not have synthetic volume enabled, or you know, it's not a feature yet on Exo for the OI text type, which is something we're going to look to implement, I'm sure. But right now what you're seeing is 102 Bitcoin rather than 102 million dollars, for example, or some, you know, 102 Bitcoin. It's not the dollar denomination of this. Okay, so you're going to have to think about it in Bitcoin, and that's no problem to me because what this is going to be showing you is only new positions. Again, new shorts on the left, new longs on the right. But you can see where you've got a ton of blank here, right? And a lot of, so this is going to, because you've got delta clusters enabled, people don't thinking about this, but you've got to be thinking about the combination of the cluster shading alongside the text type. So I already know there's a lot of cells going on here. You know, the clusters are red, and we know it's not new positions because if it was new positions, there would be, you know, the text would be in here showing like actually where those new positions are opening. So this is all positions closing. Like just by knowing this is all new, you know, positions closing and getting stopped out. That's fairly useful information to know. Okay, and we can know, okay, people are closing positions here, and you can really zoom in and see where actual new positions are opening to identify where trap traders are coming into the market, right? So again, people think that, you know, if we just whack this on imbalances, and again, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but people think that, oh, this is 5.5 million new longs, or this is all new positions. No, a lot of this is positions closing to the downside and then getting, you know, closing again to the upside. This is a really big misconception, and just putting this on again, you can see where new positions are actually coming in because it's only showing you that. And then you can use the cluster shading to identify where the other positions are kind of being positioned. You can even see here, right? Look at this. So 807 Bitcoin worth of new longs. I was going to say million. 807 Bitcoin worth of new longs coming in here on the right hand side at this at this exact point in the candle. So it's extremely useful for this. And I wanted to just quickly go over, if I can, if it wants to kind of bring this up. Hopefully I've got this up here, right? This is my session candle. So again, we're using the exact same concepts that I've previously applied, but we've got session candles enabled. So rather than 15-minute, 5-minute, whatever it may be, and you can do that by going up to here, right? And you can go to look back, type, and then adjusting it up here, okay? The session you wanted to enable in terms of the candles and clusters. But I've got the exact same setup, and you can see really clearly where new longs are opening within each individual session. Okay, I'm pretty sure I covered this again previously, but again, in reference to delta clusters, it makes sense to cover it also right now. And it's really, really useful because I can see, look, there's all of these hundreds of, there's also hundreds of sells going on, but there's even thousands of new longs going on at this exact high within a trap value area of a session candle. Okay, so this is how you're kind of gaining an edge on the market. Alongside this, again, the tick size for session candles is a lot higher because again, you're dealing with sessions, not minutes. So if I just adjust this down to 80, you can see how this is not really that feasible for such time frames or hours, whereas 300, 500 it is perfectly fine, and I had 500 here. So again, hopefully found some value out of this. There's nothing else I really wanted to cover in this, apart from obviously you can use this in confluence with open interest. Open interest again with this is really good. However, when you're you can get a general consensus of what's going on within the candle, within the idea of open interest itself, but then diving into exactly where that open interest is coming in by looking at those new positions coming into the market. Again, there's all these different text types here. The total open interest at each individual level, again, you can decipher this one open interest through that information itself. But again, if you want just new positions, use that there, and you'll get new positions. Again, it is not synthetic volume compatible yet, but that's something we'll be looking into. Hopefully you found some value. I really appreciate you watching and supporting the content. Thank you, everyone.